Coming to you from the Black Swan Media Studios, this is Fireside Chats, talking to the real difference makers in the world. Now, here is your host, John Crump.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Fireside Chats. Tonight is Saturday, October 5th. We are broadcasting on Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube for John Crump, YouTube for Black Swan Media, D-Live, Loots, and a bunch of other places. Chris Shoemaker's first one out there. Hi, Chris. I'll send you a patch because you're the first one out there. If you want to help support me and the show, you can go to patreon.com/John Crump. If you can't do that, I totally understand. Another way to help is to go to blackswantactical.com and buy a shirt or something like that. Or you can just share this link, like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Hit those thumbs up, people. And tonight I am joined by a very interesting gentleman that I had a chance to meet. He actually came to my house to pitch what he's selling, and honestly, I really liked it. There seems to be a stream issue, so give me one. I'm gonna blip here, so hang out. And we are back. I switched to my alternative network, so we should be a little bit faster here tonight. Like I was saying before, I was joined by a very interesting gentleman named Steve Bozich. He is I would say a First Amendment, Second Amendment advocate, for sure. And you have a very interesting mission, don't you?
Well, you could call it interesting. Some would call it suicidal. But it is something I cared very deeply about, and I would consider myself an activist more so than anything else. But what I'm doing is, a couple years ago, I had an idea. Somebody, I had first heard about the 80% world. God, back in, I want to say maybe it was 2014, 2015. And I was fascinated with the idea that you could build your own. And so I kind of started going down the rabbit hole and educated myself as much as possible and started building my own. First build was a Polymer 80 AR-15. Wanted to keep it simple and just, got addicted from there. Around that time, as I was educating myself about the 80%, or what is known as them, and learning more about kind of how the ATF was treating them, I heard about build parties and what ended up being their demise, which was specifically ATF ruling 2015-1, if I remember correctly, which pretty much put the kibosh on the build party. Because, and folks, if you don't know what a build party is, essentially a bunch of guys would get together, rent out like a machine shop after hours, and use their tools to hog chips and finish these 80%. So no more build parties, because the ATF found that the machine shops were engaged in the business of manufacturing. And if the tools and equipment under their control and dominion were used to manufacture firearms, then they need an FFL. So no more build parties. And so I had an idea. And it took a while for it to kind of take shape. But eventually the finished idea was looking at the definition of engaged in the business, which is what the ATF uses to determine whether or not you need an FFL to sell or manufacture firearms or ammunition, with some exceptions. I won't get into them. The definition requires that you devote time, attention, and labor through the regular course of trade or business with the principal objective of livelihood and profit. So I asked the IRS if I could start a 501c3 nonprofit for the purpose of firearm education and safety to, among other things, build classes on 80%. And after a couple $1,000s and many, many months, I got a letter back in the mail last year that said, yeah, you're a nonprofit. So that's what we've been doing. We're going to leverage our nonprofit status to do, lots of good things, firearm safety, suicide prevention. Been working with Sarah from Hold My Gun. She's done great work. But the genesis of this idea, this concept, was to give build classes for 80%, to essentially create a makerspace for guns and ammo. And that's what we're doing.
That is very interesting. Yeah, Sarah's a very cool person. I like Sarah a lot.
Sarah is awesome.
Yeah.
I'd say she's a man, but I don't want to misgender her.
Yeah, I'll get kicked off YouTube if you do that. Yeah, Sarah over at holdmyguns.org. Incredible person. She's actually been on the show. I met you about a month ago, I guess. You drove up here from North Carolina to pitch what you were selling, I guess. Well, not literally
I
selling,
happen to be in
but...
the area. And I appreciate, you let me come by and let you know about what we're doing.
Yeah, and I thought it was very cool. One of the things I really like about it is how you found that little loophole there.
I am adverse to the term loophole. I am complying with the letter of the law as written. Loopholes are, the sort of thing you find around your neck. I think that, the law is quite clear that the Congress used their commerce power to prevent entities that are engaged in the business of manufacturing or selling firearms from doing so outside, regulation. We aren't engaged in the business of doing so. As don't listen to me, but believe the IRS. So, yeah, you could call it a loophole if you want, but and I hate to split hairs or get into semantics, but I like to just point out that we're following the letter of the law. We're operating with the blessing of the federal government, the IRS, which in 1968 was just like the ATF, a department under the Department of the Treasury.
Yeah. What is your background, by the way?
Oh, okay. Well, I've got an interesting background. I grew up in Boston, which has a long and storied history and tradition when it comes to guns. Specifically, guns are bad. Don't touch them. Don't look at them. Don't say the word gun.
If you think about it, the first gun confiscation was outside Boston.
Yes, it was. April 19th, 1775, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I know. And it's amazing to think in just a few short 100 years, it has swung as much as it has. And I was really happy to get out of Boston. Grew up there. In September 2001, some people did some things, and I joined the Army. And I became a gun guy pretty quick. My first duty assignment was in Germany. I actually got stationed back in Massachusetts in September of 2004, which happened to be the same time that the assault weapon ban was ending. And so I was able to start my gun collection on the right foot, so to speak. And it just kind of snowballed from there. After I got out of the Army in 2009, one of the first things, I spent some of my GI Bill. I got my master's degree in accounting. So I'm pretty familiar when it comes to entity formation and how they work and all that stuff. I also got my concealed carry permit in North Carolina. Became an instructor in 2013 when the laws changed. Big shout out to Grassroots North Carolina for their help with that. And really at that point, that's really when I started kind of going downhill and getting, stuck in the business and really just kind of getting, more and more passionate about what I was doing. Yeah, learning about the law.
Yeah, that's one of the things I found really interesting is by talking to you, I was guessing engineer
Okay, no
or
accountant
machinist.
slash veteran. I did actually, and the reason I was up in Virginia is because when I started to do this whole crazy thing, I still had some GI Bill left, and the there's an online program, SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute. So I signed up with them and did a I already had my master's, so the associates was only 1 year. And got an associates in firearms technology, just kind of to broaden my knowledge base a little bit. And they shot out an email to some of their graduates saying they were looking for part-time field refs. So sounded like it would be a good time. It might be fun, get me an opportunity to get paid and get out into the gun world a little bit more often. I tend to be something of a hermit here on my farm in North Carolina, so I jumped at the opportunity, and that's why they had sent me up your way in Virginia. And that was right at the time that actually Sarah had done her raffle, and I think that's how I ended up hooking up with you at that moment. So there was kind of a confluence of
Yeah.
of of things taking place, and
You're like
so I appreciate the opportunity to come out.
you're like you're a journalist. Let me get with you. Yeah, I'm gonna write a article about what you're doing. Probably in the next week or so. I've just been so slammed,
I understand.
unbelievably slammed, and I'm getting ready to get sent out to Vegas. And then after that, we got the big 2A rally up here in November 2nd. Are you gonna come to that?
I will not.
Okay,
I'm already spoken for in November.
I gotcha. I
So
gotcha.
if things change, if the weekend opens up, then I'll probably be there.
Okay, I gotcha. Recently, the AG of New York sent out letters to 12 different companies. I've talked to all those companies. You didn't get one, but do you feel any pressure about the 80% lower type of stuff going on from the government?
No, and by the way, I'm sorry. Full disclosure, I didn't just start a nonprofit that gives build classes. I also started a for-profit that sells 80% kits. And my next great
I love
leap,
that.
my next great leap. Well, as I started becoming kind of more and more of a gun guy, I always had a dream. Right, it wasn't a real dream, but it was kind of something I almost I always wanted to do if I had, if I won the lottery and had $1 billion just to piss away. I would open up a store that sold, fine wine and liqueurs and craft beers. And next door I'd have like a head shop with, cigars and, what have you. And then next door I would have a gun shop. So, if you're out in the parking lot of the strip mall and you're looking at the facade, you would see alcohol, tobacco, firearms. We wouldn't be able to make it a single convenience store, but we'd do it as close as we could get it. So what my vision, I kind of stole that from myself. My vision is bear arms, the adjective BARE, not the verb. Will have a bricks location, and next door, Armed and Safe, the nonprofit, will also have a bricks and mortar location, two separate entities. But again, in an attempt to reduce my carbon footprint as much as possible, I'd want to consolidate the two as close as possible. So I'm not doing needlessly commuting from place to place, and voila. So yes, I do have one of those 80% shops, and I am actually terribly insulted. Not only did I not get a letter from the Attorney General of New Jersey, who sent out a slew of them a couple of months ago, but I didn't get one from the Attorney General of New York either. That said, not getting one myself, I can't speak specifically to the wording of the letter. But if I were to believe that, as written in press reports, is an accurate description, it looks like a big part of the complaint is misleading advertising.
Yeah.
That they're not making it clear to consumers that there are legal issues with selling them, and I'm
Well,
very clear.
well, this is what the AG. I read the letter. He
Okay.
said it's misleading advertising because you're not warning people they can't build like assault weapons with like barrel shrouds and stuff. But
now,
it's totally
now,
illegal to buy, totally illegal to build something with it.
what kind of are there the shoulder things that go up, or the other barrel shreds?
Like it was a list of parts. Anything that that
Sorry.
violates New York Safe Act, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm adamant. I will ship anything to any state, because states like New Jersey and New York and California and Massachusetts like to pick and choose what federal laws that they want to recognize. So, I mean, if they can do that, then I don't see why I can't pick and choose what state laws I want to recognize. And I don't recognize the state laws in New York and New Jersey. It's why I don't go there. And so I don't care what they say or what they do. And I'll ship anything to any resident in any U.S. state, so long as it's legal in North Carolina and federally. And the buyer understands the risk. I won't do ammo just because, there's hazmat and stuff like that, and I just don't mess with it. But maybe one of these days I will. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't care less about what the Attorney General of New York thinks or wants or does.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny that it's they know that legally they have like not a ground to stand on.
Of course not, and they're using the false advertising claim. And in fact, I don't have proof, but I do think that I think I got a call from I did get a call from somebody who claimed to be from New Jersey, and I think they might have been, because this was right before the New Jersey AG sent out those letters. And I was adamant. I said, look, you're in New Jersey, you cannot build anything, even an 80%. Doesn't matter what it is. You have to have, from what I understand, you have to have a state manufacturer's license in New Jersey.
Yeah. Like
now, whether or not it's legal to have it shipped to you in New Jersey, and then you go across the river to Pennsylvania, build it, and then bring it back, I don't know. I don't really care because I don't live in New Jersey. But yeah, so far as I know, that would be okay. But building in New Jersey is strictly verboten. And this dude was adamant about putting in an order, and then never heard from him again. And then those letters came out. So who knows? Maybe I dodged a bullet, so to speak. Yeah. Although I really wish I got one of those letters, because it would be framed on my wall now.
It's like a badge of honor. And I don't think they. What does my shirt say?
Ban idiots, not guns?
Yeah. Well, my let me bring. I got a little banner at the bottom, so they can't see it.
Oh, okay.
On, let me bring down the banner. Ban idiots, not guns.
Indeed.
There you go. Rule of the day. You can find. Actually, I don't think this shirt's on there anymore, but you can find other shirts at Black Swan Tactical. It's not a paid advertisement because it's my site. So.
Well, and I just started. I've been talking about doing this forever. Throwing up like a merch page on my website. For other guys that So I'll make sure I get one for Black Swan up as well.
Yeah.
The more, the merrier.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm actually sending someone down to your area once we can get them down there.
Yeah, we've been trying to
schedule
to hash something out.
Bitch.
It is.
Are you going to SHOT this year?
I will.
Okay.
I will be there. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I have not looked at any of the details yet, but I will be there.
Yeah, I want to get you together with a bunch of people and talk about what you're doing, because I think it's very, very interesting. Have you had any pushback or anyone complaining or trying to protest you or anything like that? I
have done my level best to get as many people protesting me as humanly possible. And unfortunately, I just haven't been there yet. I think as we become more well-known, ultimately, right now we're still, kind of in the baby step phase. When I finally get, find a location to put, these two locations in, again, it's going to be kind of rudimentary as we still kind of go through the process and do the proof of concept. But ultimately, the vision is to have, a room full of Bridgeports. for instance, an AR-15 class. My ultimate vision is, somebody comes in, off the street. We are going to have an objective means by which to ensure that individuals are not prohibited persons. And since we don't have access to the NCIC, we are going to use, in North Carolina, we'll be able to use concealed carry permits or pistol purchase permits. We have universal background checks for handguns here in North Carolina. So either of those would suffice. And then, they'll come in, we'll go over a safety briefing, a quick how-to on how to run a Bridgeport. You'll take your 80%, you'll put it in a jig, pop it in that bad boy, mill it out. We'll have digital readouts so that, it's really just paint by numbers. And, ultimately, I'd love to have an anodizing, like a tank room to do anodizing, install all the parts.
Shit can get expensive, man.
It can. It absolutely can.
Type 3 anodizing is actually no joke.
Yeah, you can do a decent home setup. I haven't done it yet, but you can do a decent. I priced them out. They're about $1,000, $1,000, give or take a couple hundred.
Yeah, one of the things that people don't realize is, that when you do the anodizing setup like that, you have a lot of hazmat with that.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we're going to have to automatically be, very, very aware and careful of, is making sure that we have processes in place, not only to protect, the people in the class, but also the environment.
Yeah.
Because that is, in joke about, spraying aerosol cans up the ozone layer all day long.
No,
but at the end of the day, yeah.
This shit is caustic, very caustic.
Yeah. But I do know that it can be done on small batch.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. I've done it before with Home Depot stuff and car batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you have to wait for.
And if that doesn't work, maybe.
No, that does work.
I know.
But you have to wait.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
I said that does work, but it takes forever before they have that hazardous material. What's up, Girl and Guns? Before you have that hazardous material pickup day, where you can take it. It's like, but yeah, that is whatever.
Yeah.
One of the people from our Facebook chat room, producer Cowboy, my producer of the show, Cowboy, wants to know what needs to be done for the lower to be functional.
Okay, so I don't have one with me, unfortunately, but if we're talking about an AR,
I'm gonna go grab one.
Oh, cool! Good deal. I hope it's close, because otherwise I'm just standing here entertaining dozens, hundreds, millions. I know it's 10:30 at night, but John's got me drinking coffee because I should be asleep right now. Actually, I should be drunk right now, but because it's 10:30, but it is what it is. It's the sacrifices I make. Good Lord. He really did go on the other side of the house to get one. All right. Well, let's see what else. I've got a couple seconds, minutes of your undivided attention. What shall I say to fill up this blank spot? In addition to the 80%, we're also going to... Oh, is he coming back? I'll have to leave you hanging.
I am back. Here it is.
Perfect.
So this
Beautiful.
is an 80% lower.
Yes. And so you'll see that the fire control pocket is solid aluminum. And so that has to be milled out entirely. And the holes for the hammer pin, the trigger pin, the selector switch, and the trigger slot have to be milled out as well. Yeah. And there's a variety of products out there. to make it relatively easy with rudimentary tools.
I can see you guys, Richard. I'm gonna ask. I broadcast across 10 different platforms. Just trying to get some from the questions here. Let me see. I got all of everything. Saying call Central Florida hydro dipping. Hydro dipping is really, really cool. The issue with hydro dipping, though, is when you anodize it, you get a lot of protection from actual like corrosion and stuff like that, where you don't get the same level with hydro dipping. But I love hydro dipping. How many firearms do you make a week? Richard wants to know.
How many do I make a week?
Yeah. Or you just sell the kits?
I mean, oh goodness gracious. I mean, I haven't made that many. I mean, how many does the nonprofit make a week? Okay.
Talk about that. I'm going to go get the finished product.
Yeah, by all means. So it really depends. At this point, we're not doing public classes. I'm still working on the curriculum. I think the biggest thing that I'm, in addition to having an actual physical location, right now I am being nice enough to rent out my workshop to the nonprofit on days that the nonprofit holds classes. But ultimately, the plan is to have an actual physical location where we can hold classes on a regular basis. And two, the big thing is coming up with a curriculum and figuring out the best way, given the tools and the different methods. Because really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a process so that somebody who has no machining experience, has no firearms experience, but wants to do it, can do it. Once I built my own, I learned so much more. And I mean, this is after I'd spent seven years in a week active Army. I learned more about the AR-15 in the 2 days it took me to build one than I learned in 7 years as an active Army soldier. And I mean, that was really, mind-boggling to me. And nobody's ever become less safe by becoming more educated. And so really our underlying goal is to promote safety through education. And, there is no better education out there than building one yourself. And so that's what we have to do, is figure out a curriculum, a process that I can take kind of, the average person and figure out how I can get them to safely build and get the most out of it. So that's kind of the next big thing. And then lastly, those two things are critically important so that I can get the third thing I need to really blow this up, which is an insurance company to underwrite. That is going to be prohibitively expensive. And that's one of the reasons we need awareness and support from the gun world. Because I think once I get the first one up and running and the proof of concept works and there's buy-in, then the revenues from the first nonprofit will be able to subsidize the opening of the second one. Yeah. And then the third, and then the fourth, so on and so forth. And, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to put one in New Jersey, but we can put one across the river in Pennsylvania. And we couldn't do one in Massachusetts, but we can do one in southern New Hampshire. And we can't do any in Maryland, but we can go to Northern Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. For now, we can go to Northern Virginia.
Yeah. Here is a finished product. I made this out of 80% lower right here.
Sweet.
It's fully functional. It runs. No serials. Nothing like that.
And there's nothing wrong. Just I kind of had this conversation. It was either today or yesterday about serializing 80%. There's nothing wrong with serializing an upper receiver or a lower receiver.
Yeah, you can get it. You just go fill out the paperwork and do it.
Yeah, well, it's not even a matter of paperwork. If you want to put a serial number on your lower, you can do it.
Yeah, you don't need to register with the ATF or anything like that.
Exactly. I mean, now you have an identifying mark on your firearm. The important thing is that's not tied to a 4473 or any A&D book.
Yeah, as you can see, I didn't finish this one. This is shake and spray. But yeah, so that's what it looks like. So it goes from here, all the trigger mechanisms are in there, the pins are on the side, and that's what it started out as.
Yep.
I
And now,
cheated a little bit though, as you
yeah,
know. I didn't use a drill or anything. A friend of mine who's now in jail for sleeping with a 16-year-old in Texas, Cody Wilson, started something called Defense Distributed. If you search for Defense Distributed, you'll find him. He is the guy who was the first one to 3D print a gun.
Cody was actually my spirit animal, right? My muse. When I heard about Defense Distributed, that was kind of one of the big things that motivated me to dig in and learn more about the law. In fact, the first idea that I had for this was, I had gotten some internet information, and my understanding was you had to own the equipment that was used to manufacture the firearm.
Yeah.
Again, this is very preliminary when I'm just learning about it. And so my first idea was, just buy like a dozen ghost gunners and put them as assets in a corporation and then sell stock to the corporation. But I ran into issues with the Securities Exchange Act and qualified investors, and it just got messy. So I had to go a different route. But no, I I know Cody very well, and
yeah, he gave me a ghost gunner, which was
cool.
Very, very nice of him.
And that's actually, I would love to run ghost gunning classes as well. Or, if there's something similar on the market.
It's so simple. You put it in the machine, you hit a button. I should have showed you when you were here.
Yeah, so I've followed a lot of the ghost gunner, like Facebook pages, and it looks like, if everything works properly, it's easy, but it looks like, if you have any kind of issues, a layman wouldn't be able to fix them. Quickly or easily.
See, I'm an engineer by trade, so.
Right.
So for me, I guess that's not really.
But John, I'm sure you know this. Most people are not engineers.
No. So it's not a tax stamp to serialize it. You just have to pay. You just serialize it. You just get it engraved, and you're done.
Yeah, you put whatever you want on it.
Another question is coming from our chat room. Let's see here. We had a couple questions here. Have you ever thought about doing a 80% bolt action?
Yes. One of the things
I know
really
we talked
excited...
about that. That's when I saw that question. I got excited.
One of the things I'm really excited about with the prospect of essentially creating a makerspace for guns and ammo. And John, when you were gone, I was, there's nothing worse, right, in broadcasting than dead air. So I was trying to. Sorry,
I just thought it was important for.
No, absolutely. I should have brought one myself. I apologize.
Yeah, I thought you were. So I didn't bother to grab one.
One of the things I'm really excited about in terms of what I think we're going to be capable of doing is expanding exponentially the number of platforms that are capable of being made from 80%. So that includes bolt actions. I don't make anything, at least not yet. In terms of 80%, I don't take it from a 0% to an 80%. On the for-profit side, I'm purely retail. I buy wholesale, I sell retail. That's it. On the nonprofit side, it's purely educational. But yeah, I think in terms of bolt action, if manufacturers know that there's an armed and safe out there. And people can get access to the machines and can get access to the instruction, right, and the oversight to use it. I think we can really expand the number of firearms that are able to be built from 80%. Yeah. And that includes bolt actions, revolvers, shotguns, the whole 9 yards.
Revolvers, I love to see. I haven't seen a revolver. I've done a 1911.
Yes.
And a Glock, but that I'm having issues with that safe, so I can't get to it.
Man, we'll get you done.
So 1911 Glocks.
I got to ask, what kind of, is it a Polymer 80 or is it the Glock Store SS80?
It's Polymer 80.
Okay. All right, I'll get with you off air.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
You were talking about SIGs, doing SIGs.
I'm actually building a SIG right now. It's tough. the build process can absolutely be a start-stop sort of thing. I've done a bunch of Glocks. I've done a bunch of ARs. I've done in 1911. We Armed and Safe ran in 1911 build class. Building the frame is actually really easy. The hard part is doing the fitting of all the parts, and that takes a while. So I'm gonna have to rethink how we do the 1911 build class. I think it might be a kind of you come in, we teach you how to cut the frame. We teach you how to do like some of the hand fitting, and then maybe you come back for how to assemble everything. I don't know. But the SIG is what I'm working on now. I'm using the JSD. It is a trigger chassis, 80% for a SIG P320, and I have just bent the rails. I actually didn't have all of the drill bits that I needed for the build, so I had to run out and find those. And now it's just a matter of getting back and drilling some holes and then putting all the parts together.
Yeah,
and tossing a video up and seeing how it goes.
There's a bunch of misconception about 80% lowers, what's legal, what isn't.
Right.
How do you deal with that when people think that something, like you're saying, some people think that you have to own the tools, which is not the case.
Right. So legally, the tools can't belong to an entity that is engaged in the business of manufacturing, right? That is the rule. So if you happen to have a buddy who has a CNC machine and it's just his CNC machine, then by all means, go in there, toss it in. I don't know anybody who just has a CNC machine, right, that isn't engaged in the business, that I guess if we had to use an accounting standard, that isn't part of a depreciation expense every year for taxes.
You don't know anybody with a CNC machine that has that?
That doesn't?
You broke up. I somehow missed that. You were saying something that you don't know anybody with a CNC machine. Hello?
Yeah, so,
okay.
I mean, there's a lot to it. And, I mean, in the ATF, oh, did I lose it? There we go. Even the ATF, I mean, depends on who you ask, you can get different answers. So, again, like I said, Armed and Safe is designed, it was founded for the purpose of firearm education and safety. And so educating people on what the law is and what you can legally do within the confines of it is part of our goal. And so, no, I mean, I see that as just part and parcel of our mission.
Yeah. Here's a question. It might not be too relevant. I was looking at the numbers for last month's firearm sales.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But someone, it was me. I hit the wrong button. Sorry, guys. Someone was wondering, do you think the firearm market is flooded with manufacturers get weapons and products like Colt stop selling ARs? Do you think that's going to affect your planned niche? I would say that's not really relevant anymore because the numbers that just came out like 2 days ago, I had to monitor industry stuff because of my writings. The firearm market sales jumped 10% in 1 month.
Yeah.
Which is like unheard of. And it's
crazy.
Because the Democrats are talking about banning firearms, so everyone's going out
there.
there.
Beto and Walmart, man, are FFL's like heroes right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was dying, and then all of a sudden,
It's cyclical, and I mean, every industry is cyclical. Some industries, run on very short cycles, and some run on very long cycles. The gun industry is very sensitive to politics, and politics kind of runs on its own, different cycles. You've got the House every 2 years, you've got the White House every 4 years, you've got the Senate every 6 years, maybe depending on what class of senators it is and what the distribution of D's and R's in that particular class is. So it depends. And it depends on a whole, bunch of other vagaries, like, somebody shooting up a Walmart now, El Paso. Sometimes you'll have a confluence of different events that kind of come together all at the same time, like the Sandy Hook shooting right after Obama's 2012 re-election, right? So no, I mean, it's cyclical, and I think you'll always see it subject to change. In terms of the 80% world and kind of where it is going to fall inside of that cyclic industry. I think it's going to be kind of, for the most part, separate from it. I think the guys who, I think generally speaking, the guys and gals who are really passionate about building 80% are going to do it regardless of, I mean, it's almost like, when the market's down, buy, it's going to be that kind of mentality is, they're not going to care that everybody isn't running to their local gun store to buy every brick of 22. But I think of course, will,
when that happened.
I know. I know, man. I was lucky. I started stockpiling before, and so when the drought happened, I just got to sit back and do nothing.
Yeah, I had about 100,000 rounds of 22.
Oh, you had me beat. I was probably around 20, 25.
I owned a gun shop at the time, so.
Oh well, hell yeah, okay. So no, I mean, I think there will be some cycles to it, but really, I mean, I think that when it comes to the 80%, in the long run, assuming that there isn't any kind of legislative interference, I think what you're going to see is 80% be embraced by FFLs. I think the 80% world, and specifically what I'm doing, will be very good for FFLs. I think it'll be probably pretty bad for bad FFLs. I think, you'll see, let's say the 80% world, cannibalizes, let's say 10% of the standard FFL market. I think that 10%, that burden is going to be felt disproportionately by bad FFLs, and it'll probably push some of them out of the market, which will be to the benefit of good FFLs. So I see nothing but good things for everybody involved, ultimately, except bad FFLs.
Yeah.
But, hey.
I know there's a lot of people being arrested in the UK now for producing 3D printed guns.
Dude, there was a guy arrested in the UK for singing Kung Fu Fighter. All right, so we stopped caring what the UK thought in, April 19th, 1775.
The jigs for milling.
Yes.
If you use hand tools, if it's still accurate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it depends on the jig. It depends on a variety of things. Generally speaking, especially if you're dealing with like a polymer 80, they use one-time use jigs. If you do everything right, you could probably squeeze 2 or 3. But their kits come with a jig every time, so they're kind of designed to be self-leveling. And for that reason, they actually recommend you don't use something like a drill press. That you use a hand drill instead, because again, it kind of self-corrects the way the jig's set up. So if you're using a drill press, it won't fix itself. It won't self-correct because it'll just go straight down. So you're off. You're just gonna kind of keep magnifying that intolerance, if you will.
Just get a ghost gunner and just call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to do it.
You put the thing in there.
There's so many different ways to do it.
You click on the menu. AR-15, bam.
Well, not everybody can afford, a $2,500, toaster.
Shit, I can't.
I mean, granted, it's worth it, but
I'm thinking about selling mine. I don't use it enough.
See?
After you do like 8 or 9, you're like, what's the point?
What?
It's not like I can sell these or anything like that.
Well, and that was actually another thing I was considering, was buying them and renting them, but. Again, just, if you do run into any issues, it can require some knowledge of, electrical engineering, mechanics to get that thing running again, even computer science, if it's a coding issue. So I wanted to stay away from that. I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea. And like I said, what I would love to do is have kind of a simple, try it class with armed and safe. So, I mean, we wouldn't be doing an entire 80% because those things take a while. But we could do something. we could do a simple coding class where, you use it to inscribe your name or, whatever. And people can, get a feel for it and see if they like it. And if they do, they'd be available for sale next door at Bear Arms.
Okay. The Archangel is asking,
What's up, Ark?
can you carry an 80% build? I know the answer to that, but do you want to answer it?
Every single day.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my legal advice. But yeah, you can carry.
Yeah. It's not, again, there's no requirement that a firearm be serialized unless your state has such a law. I know New York, if you want to carry, it has to, from what I understand, you actually have to have the serial number of the gun you're carrying on your permit. I don't know if it's the same in California, but
in New York it's a pistol permit. So each gun you have to get a pistol permit for that gun.
Okay, right, just to buy the gun. But if you wanted to carry the gun,
you have to pay. You have to pay you have to pay a tax, on the gun basically. Like each month to your locality.
And that's to carry it?
No, that's just to own it.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. My father-in-law is from New York, and he was a cop in New York, so his tax was like $1 per gun. But
that's nice.
But that's because he was a cop.
Right.
It's very hard to carry in New York. You basically need lawyers to get a concealed weapons permit.
Well, I'm talking about New York State, not city.
No, in New York State.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's incredibly hard. Unless you're
I've
rich,
heard,
you're not getting.
Yeah, I've heard various things. I don't know if it's a shall issue state or a may issue state, from what I understand.
Yeah,
so, it could depend on where you are.
You have to get a lawyer, basically. I mean, to get one approved, and you have to show a credible threat. And it's like, oh, some guy trying to kill me. Nope. It has to be credible. How can you prove that the guy really wants to kill you and he's just not talking that he wants to kill you, but he's not really wants to kill you? He's just saying that he wants to kill you, and he's just following you around for no reason, just to scare you.
I mean, if you accidentally call,
it's
what if I had on video me calling Chris Cuomo Fredo? Would that work?
Probably, dude. That dude went crazy. He's like, it's just like calling a black person the N-word. It's like, are you effing insane?
He said the same thing about fake news. So apparently everything is that insults, that offends Fredo, is like calling a black person the N-word. So nobody ever said he was the smarter brother.
Yeah, Archangel, I do agree that it's a direct violation of the Second Amendment, but
Yeah,
I don't live in New York.
I mean, I think one of the important things
you can hunt with it too.
From my perspective, is letting people know who I am and what I believe. And just a quick breakdown. First of all, I support the Second Amendment, but if there was no government, we wouldn't need a Second Amendment. That said, a free state is one in which the power to govern is justly derived from the consent of the governed. And for consent to be legitimate, it has to be extended freely, has to be capable of being withdrawn. And a well-regulated militia is the means by which we reserve our right. We may maintain our ability to withdraw our consent, which is why the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. Full stop.
I just want to say bye to the poor conservative. He's having to dip out, so see ya.
Oh, later.
Yeah. Cool guy. Yeah, you can hunt with the homemade firearm that's from 80% lower. There's no rule. It basically, the only difference between that AR that I showed you and one of the other ARs I have, if I have any, I'm not saying I do, or not saying I have 50 or more, but
but if you did,
but if I did, theoretically, the only thing I can't do is I can't transfer it.
Again, it depends on the state. So generally speaking, yeah, I mean, so if you build it with the intent to sell it, then you need to have a manufacturer's license. There's no.
I'm talking about one with no serial number. You can't sell an unserialized gun. You have to put a serial number on there.
I haven't seen anywhere in the law where it says that.
When I was doing research for the Ghost Gunner article,
Hmm.
I contacted the ATF, and they provided me with the exact section and everything I can get to you.
All right, cool.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've
you
seen.
would have to have it marked up and submit a form 1, I think it is, to them with the serial number. Then you can transfer it.
Really?
Yes.
Because I mean, I've gone through the literature and
It was in legalese. I verified it with a lawyer too because it was
right.
very, very hard to understand.
I was gonna say it sounded very much like they were trying to make it sound like you did, but you don't.
No, I
Um,
went to a gun lawyer, one of the top gun lawyers in the country, and he said, "Yeah, that's what it says. It's just a legal way of saying it."
okay. Well, if that's the case, then there you go.
Yeah. He didn't want to be named for the article, but if you know anything about Second Amendment cases and stuff like that, it's Form 4. You're right. Second Amendment cases or anything like that, then you would know this guy's name like right off the bat.
Sure.
And he's very pro-gun. So if he says, "Yeah, there's no gray area on that," you have to,
Right.
or it's a felony.
I'm guessing. I think I know who you're talking about. So
You probably do.
yeah.
So if he says that, then yeah, you know.
Right. And if that's the case, then that's the case. You know, I mean.
Yeah, I just didn't want to throw anything out there and someone get in trouble and get a felony charge with them.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. I mean, look, is every single gun law an infringement? Yeah. However, you know, in the Army, there's a saying, you know, you do what your rank can handle. Well, you know, you do what your pocketbook can afford. And if you can't afford a lawyer to deal with that kind of charge, then, you know, I mean, just have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Probably not. So, you know, let's do everything we can to educate people, to get the laws changed, that they make sense. I mean, I support any and every common sense gun law that there is. And as soon as somebody can give me one that's common sense, I'll support it. But I haven't ever heard one that's even remotely common sense. So unfortunately, you know, we're going to have to, you know, work within the system until we change it.
G-Webs is on. Do you know who Gun Websites is on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah, he's in the chat room. He was on last night. He's doing a project that's really cool. If you go to his website, it's on there. It's called the Shooter's Almanac. He's raising money on Indiegogo.
Cool.
And it's a really cool project. You should go check it out. But I gotta hook you guys up because I think you guys would talk for hours about this stuff.
I can. No, absolutely. And I'm always looking for other platforms on which to. One of the biggest problems I've had getting started was even just having a platform from which I could, you know, accept donations. Brutal. I mean, I was shut down by PayPal. I was shut down by GoFundMe. There was an alternate site called UCaring that would let us get set up, and then they got bought by GoFundMe. I mean, it's just been one thing after another. Patreons, I mean, same thing. Nobody wanted to touch us with a 10-foot pole. So, I'll have to check out Indiegogo.
Yeah, G-Webs is very, very good at. He's successfully funded like 30 projects.
Oh, and I absolutely have to talk to him.
Yeah, you do. Is it legal to own a bump stock if you have a class 3 firearms license?
Oh, good God Almighty!
There is no such thing as a class 3 firearms license. That's just
so
a
if you're
misnomer.
an SOT.
Well, if you have an SOT, then you can get one as a demo unit and register as machine gun, which is stupid to do. But a lot of people
would do it if you're an SOT.
You have a lot of people throwing around the term class 3 firearms license. Oh, I got a class 3 firearms license so I can own suppressors and stuff. The deal is for each class 3 weapon that you own, or I don't even call them weapons, guns or suppressors and whatnot, you have to pay a separate $200 tax stamp for each item. So I got like a safe full of suppressors in there, a machine gun or two, you know. SBRs, SBSs, and for each one, it's $200. It's a one-time fee, and they send you a little tax stamp, and you have to go through extensive background checks, submit, headshots, and everything.
Fingerprints. Yep. Yeah. So the problem with so according to the latest ruling or reinterpretation of the law per ATF that effectively banned bump stocks, you should be able to just pay a $200 tax and register your bump stock. The only problem is the Hughes Amendment shut down the registry for NFA items in 1986.
Yeah, 1986, the Firearms Protection Act, which is kind of like
I know.
not.
Well,
for this suppressor right here, this is an OSS 556 Elite. I filed the paperwork and everything, and then it took 14 months to get it. I'm hearing that coming back. Yeah, I'm hearing that coming back in like 3 to 4 months now, which is good. And if you have a class 3 item,
I think it depends on how you file.
Yeah. Well, even if you e-file, which you can only do Form 1s, you can't do Form 4s in e-file. They're coming back in like 2 weeks. The Form 4s now are coming back in 3 to 4 months, which is ridiculously fast for what they used to be.
I think the next thing I do is e-file a Form 1 for my own suppressor, because I already have a couple, but I'd love to build one.
Yeah.
And heck, I mean, at some point that might just be a class.
Yeah. The issue with bump stocks is they're ruled machine guns now.
Right.
And now thinking about it, you can't even have them as a sample. Like an SOT can't have one either.
No, he'd have to make one after the fact, because the ones prior to you could never even register them. You couldn't even put them in the NFA.
Yeah,
or in the registry. Yeah,
they were never in the NFA.
So they would have to make one after the fact as a machine gun.
Yeah, and no one's gonna produce bump stocks.
Yeah, it would never happen. There's no reason. The reason you get a bump stock is because you don't have an SOT. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. But binary triggers are still legal, so get them while you can.
Yeah, I know. Archangel is saying 14 months. Yes, I know. I picked up, when I was picking up this suppressor, there's another guy that came in and he was like, "Oh, my suppressor's in. It only took 3 months." I'm like, asshole.
Bastard.
It's like, what an asshole.
I was, I think, 7 for my first one and 11 for my second one. But my second one, I filed the day before that new rule. I think it was 41F. Took hold, where everybody in the trust had to submit fingerprints and passport photos. So I'm not surprised that took a little bit longer. But 14 months is crazy.
Yeah, I agree with gun websites. I don't want any forms, but, we have the law. We got to change it. And to Chris, you can't transfer a bump stock. It's done. It was never produced as a machine gun. It has to be destroyed or turned into the ATF. So they're non-transferable. So you either destroy it or you turn it into the ATF. Or you can't find it because you lost it somewhere. But yeah. There is a case that was going through and went to the Supreme Court, gun websites, about challenging the NFA. It was brought by GOA. The Supreme Court declined to hear it. It was out of Indiana. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'd love to see them all get repealed. I mean, just repeal the GCA and NFA. I mean, you get those two, then FOPA becomes irrelevant, and Brady becomes irrelevant. But in the meantime, I mean, if we could just get Hughes repealed out of the FOPA, that would be great. And then keep walking it back. Unfortunately, liberty isn't lost in a day. Rome wasn't destroyed in a day. It takes a long time to deconstruct things sometimes.
Yeah.
Whether it's laws or civilizations.
Yeah, I agree with the gun websites. We do have routes to challenge the NFA, and they are being challenged. The problem is every time they get to the Supreme Court, they turn them down. They won't hear them. So the lower
Yeah,
court ruling stands.
right. Well, and I think one of the things that it's still too early to tell, but one of the good things, and I think one of the things that the gun world, I think just patriots and liberty lovers in general have sucked at for the last 7 years is the courts. I think ever since FDR threatened to pack the Supreme Court, you saw conservatives back down and essentially tuck tail when it comes to court appointments. And you've seen a shift in the court over the last 80, almost 90 years now. And I think we might see that start to change back.
It is. The Ninth Court is about to become conservative, which is
insane.
Which is insane, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
They were, like, a few years ago, they were very, very liberal. Now they're about to be conservative with the latest judge retirement. Cowboy wants to know, can we challenge the Supreme Court turning down the cases? Short answer, no.
No. To whom? I mean, your legislature, right? I mean, that would be the next bet. I mean, there's three branches of government, and technically the executive can't do anything. So it would either be a legislative solution or a judicial one. And if the judiciary doesn't do anything, then you'd have to turn to the legislative branch.
Chris Shoemake went with the BFS3, which is a binary trigger by Franklin Armory. Anybody out there that wants a 10% off Franklin Armory trigger, you can use the discount code LIBERTY, and it will get you 10% off. I don't get any kickback for that or anything. I just know what the code is, so 10% off. What do you think the next platform, the next 80% platform will be? Or will there be a next one? Gun websites want to know.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, there's always going to be a next one. I think, so when it comes to what platforms are most popular as 80%, Glocks and ARs were huge. And to a lesser extent, 1911s, because there's such an aftermarket for them. So I think that's really what you have to look at is, what platforms out there have large aftermarkets. The more people you have making different parts, the more likely that particular platform would be to become popular as an 80% build.
All right. Another question here. Do you think 80% loaders will become their own form factor?
I'm sorry, their own what?
Form factor, like not based on a Glock, not based on a...
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the long term. That's one of the things I'd love to do is design one that doesn't have a real world counterpart.
There is a company out there doing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, Defense Distributed did it, right, with the Liberator.
Yeah,
but I mean, that wasn't really an 80%.
Yeah, that was a 3D printed gun. There is a company out there. I can't say anything because I'm under embargo right now.
Yeah.
But
they're working on it as well.
It's done. You'll see that shot. So January.
Cool.
Yeah. Binary triggers are illegal in Florida?
Oh. Really?
Wow, that's crazy. Oh. That's not cool. They sponsor Hank Strange's show, and he's out of Florida. Weird. That's crazy. We were talking before about 3D printed guns, and I was telling you about that company, which escapes my mind right now, that they were going to send me some samples of their carbon fiber metal combined 3D print that, like, it prints in basically a carbon fiber metal hybrid type alloy type stuff. I got it in.
That's awesome.
And oh my God, it is. You can't bend it.
Really?
It was a bar about this big, and it's like trying to bend a wrench.
That's amazing.
You can't bend it.
And how light is it?
It's very light. I put it in my vise,
Hmm.
and I got a rope tied around it, pulled it as hard as I can, like made it like like wrapped it
Rented a
around.
mule.
No, I wrapped it around the pole in my basement and pulled to try to bend it.
Nothing.
No bend. My table started moving.
And that's 3D printable.
That's 3D printable, and the printers are
Oh,
going to start at like 3,000 right now, but the price will come down eventually.
I'm old enough to remember when like VHS was like $500, and $500 was like $3,000. So yeah,
That's going to change
it
a
always.
lot when the price comes down. That's going to change a lot.
Oh yeah, it
Great.
is.
It's stronger
Absolutely.
than the polymer of the Glock. You can bend that a little
Yeah.
bit. This is nope.
Oh, carbon fiber is really impressive stuff,
Yeah, I
and the
beat
idea
this.
that you could 3D print it
Yeah,
is really exciting.
I beat it with a hammer. I ran it over. Tried
Nothing.
to saw through it. Tried to drill through it. But the drill actually drill. It was tough though.
Okay, you did make it through. What kind of bit were you using?
It was it's basically the same type of bit that I use for metal.
Okay, good deal. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, it should. It's not adamantium, right? Or
Yeah,
vibranium.
yeah. But the wood based drills that I use for wood,
You just slip right off.
no, I tried
Yeah,
to like
that's
hammer through it with a nail. It's tough, man.
and
I'm excited about that.
the prospects of what's going to be possible, not just in terms of what you can build, but I mean, customization. There's so many different things that are going to be possible. Designing. I mean, you can design the next John Moses Browning or Gaston Glock or Kalishnikov or Stoner is out there. He might be born today for all we know, and he's not going to design his first gun, in a machine shop. He's going to design it, in his bedroom,
I
and he's
think
going
he's
to
already
print
out
it in
there.
his garage.
There is an anonymous guy that a lot of state governments are trying to figure out who he is. I've talked to him every once in a while, and I interviewed with him. I interviewed him, not interviewed with him, but I interviewed him. He's called Ivan the Troll, and he's doing shit that's pissing people off big time, the anti-gun people.
My kind of guy, Ivan. If you're watching,
Yeah.
keep
You
doing what
can
you're doing.
check out some of his files, and he just releases everything. He releases videos on how to do it on BitChute.
Okay.
So he got kicked off YouTube, got kicked off Twitter, got kicked off Facebook, got kicked off Vimeo, got kicked off basically everywhere. But he's on
Well, and
BitChute.
that's another thing I want to do is host, and be a safe space for files on the internet.
You were talking
You know,
about doing something else, designing something for the Ghost Gunner.
designing something for the Ghost Gunner. Oh, what? Earlier in this interview,
Yeah.
or when we were talking?
And then when we were talking about my house.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things that we're going to be capable of doing. In terms of, again, the customization and the technology that's out there, the sky's the limit. It's just, what I hope to accomplish through Armed and Safe is to create kind of a hub, a nexus where, subject matter experts in the community can come together. We can have, all of the equipment, all of the expertise brought together in one place so that, people can put it to good use and learn and become better, safer, more educated firearm owners. But yeah, I good Lord, man, I could sit down and come up with a billion ideas for what you can do with the Ghost Gunner. It really is a fun machine, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with it. For Gen 3 or 4 or 10.
Yeah. Before I get into other questions, because gun websites throwing out all sorts of questions, I do want to talk about the 2A rally in a minute. Also
Yeah.
another rally, but let me see what some of his questions are. Not relying on. Okay. We're so perfect for. Yeah, sure. The new ones. We've got a 9mm. Blah blah blah. Okay. Okay, let's do this. And since we're over an hour right now, anyway, you're going to be at a certain event in April,
Yes, I will. Not the one in Nashville.
not the one in Nashville. What are you
Well,
going
I'll
to be
probably
at?
be there too, but
What are you going to
no.
be at? April 25th, the
Yes,
Gun-a-thon in Ashburn, Virginia. Raising money for
absolutely.
GOA. It's going to be a great, great event. It's going to be a lot of fun, shooting, speakers. It's going to be incredible.
One of the things I'm really pushing to do is build as many different platforms as I can between now and then so that I can bring them all up and show them to folks.
Yep. And Archangel and gun websites. We talked about the 2A rally on November 2nd in DC before you guys got on. So, yeah. Unfortunately, Steve's not going to be able to make it. I am going to be able to make it. Gun websites is going to be there with his brochure, his almanacs there. And yeah, sorry, I'm kind of losing it now.
Nah, I know.
Yeah, it's late. Yeah, so he's going to be with that. It's going to be a great time. Do you have anything else to plug before we get out of here?
No, I mean, and just to reiterate, I'm not planning on being there on the 2nd. If I can, I will.
Yeah, you have other engagements.
Yeah, I've still got some things up in the air for November. Actually, my dad's coming down from Minnesota. Don't you know? In mid-month, there's Thanksgiving. I've got a couple gun shows I've got to attend. So once those dates cement, I'll have a better idea as to whether or not I can commit to that. I'd love to be there, but I can't. If I can't say I will, I'm not going to say I will, or even that I might. So if things change, I will make every effort to get there. But currently, unfortunately, I won't be. In terms of plugging stuff, I mean, heck. You've already given me a great opportunity to plug both Armed and Safe and Bear Arms. You can visit the sites of both. www.
They're right above you.
Oh, you were the man. I can't see it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, Armed and Safe, one word, .us and Bear Arms. So no, man. I mean, that's all I got on my plate right now. I'm sure I'll be adding stuff in the future, but hopefully I'm not asking for donations for my legal defense fund anytime soon.
Well, if you do, give me a call. I'll push something out for you or something.
Yeah, well, I know you know some good lawyers. But if it works, I mean, I've really been careful. I want to go forward with this very cautiously. I want to make sure I'm dotting my I's and crossing my T's. It's kind of uncharted territory. Nobody's done this before, so I certainly don't want to set a bad precedent. But at the same time, I want to, kind of blaze trails. And if anybody wants to try and copy what I'm doing, I mean, by all means, man, I'm walking through a minefield. So if you want to, take lead, if you want to take point, by all means. But in the meantime, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And
Steve's crazy, so let him do it.
And trying to make it successful. And certainly one of the things that's going to really help me in that regard is support from the Second Amendment community. Any kind of donations, there's a link on the page. You can make donations to us. They're all tax deductible. We are a 501c3, so we are the gold standard of nonprofits.
Yeah. All right. I think that is it for today. There's something I wanted to touch on. Oh, Chris Shoemake was asking about VR. If anybody looking forward to VR affecting firearms training, I went down to Florida. I got flown down to Florida to check out some VR firearms training stuff. I did not like it. It just didn't feel real enough.
I've heard great things. I haven't run one of the simulators. I mean, I know that they've got some really, really advanced stuff, nowadays. I've heard good things, but and again, that might be something that through the nonprofit we could do in the future.
It was like 2 years ago, so it's probably approved. It was like one of the first companies that was developing it, and I don't think they ever did come out with it.
I would love for us to get to the point where we can have one of those, so we can train teachers, to carry. I mean, so many different routes we can go. But yeah, I've heard really good things, especially with not just the screens and the programs, in terms of how interactive they are, but also the firearms and, simulating recoil and all that stuff. So I mean, 2 years is, especially nowadays with technology changing the way it does, 2 years can be a long time. So, who knows?
Well, I did 2 years ago. I did check out some simulator recoil stuff. That was a lot. I mean, it was a lot closer to the real thing than the goggles with the VR.
Oh yeah.
Looking.
Oh, I got
the
you.
recoil felt real, but
when you said VR, you meant real VR. With the goggles. I got you.
Yeah, they put the goggles on, and you had targets, and you had to like shoot the targets, and it had like simulated recoil and everything, but it just didn't feel real.
Yeah, I can see how that, especially with the goggles on. I mean, I don't even know how you'd get a good cheek weld with that.
Well, it was
unless
handguns.
You can.
It was the handguns.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, who knows? Well, hopefully it does get better. I mean, anything that can train people to react better, to improve their skill set, is a good thing. So, and maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for some folks. So, hey, the more the better.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. Remember, you can donate to me at patreon.com/John Crump. I want to apologize for Ghost from early on. I was in one of his chats. He was asking me a question. I got kicked off the Duck. It's another streaming program. And it wouldn't let me back on. So I gave up.
Well, yeah, and by all means, if anybody has any questions for me, they can always contact me. All my contact info is on the websites, so you can get a hold of me anytime. Doesn't mean I'll necessarily get right back to you, but I will get back to you.
Yep, there will not be a show next Saturday. Going to a wedding, so I cannot do a show, but we're going to do one on Thursday, and probably one other during the week. Once again, my name is John Crump, patreon.com/John Crump. You can check me out on any of the links below on the YouTubes. And that's all my social media. And I will see you guys later.
You've been watching from the Fireside Chats with John Crump, a Black Swan Media Group production. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tune in every week for a conversation with the difference makers in the world.